Hello and welcome back to SMX Next. I'm Wendy Almeida and I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker. But first, let's go over a few housekeeping items. If you run into any issues viewing this presentation, or if you have a question for our speaker, use the Q&A box at any time and we'll respond right away. Please be sure to check out the additional resources from today's speaker, including a PDF version of the slide deck in the resource section below. This session will be available for viewing on demand within approximately 30 minutes. You'll find it back in the Engagement Hub when it's ready to be replayed. Excuse me. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our expert speaker. Meghan McKenzie is the Director of Enterprise Sales at Crowd Content, overseeing a team of sales and customer success managers to help brands and publishers execute on their written content programs at scale with elite human talent and advanced technology. Meghan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mary. Fantastic introduction. So again, I'm Meghan McKenzie. I head up enterprise sales and customer success for Crowd Content. I'm really excited to present to you today some findings from our top content managers who have managed over 300 enterprise content programs over the last 5 years to really give us some insight into the success and failures of scaling content programs. So I'm going to jump right into it. So after this session, you should be able to determine what part of your content program could scale by outsourcing it, learn who you need to add to your team to make it successful if you plan to outsource, and integrate learnings from seasoned content professionals into your content program. Mary did a pretty good job at explaining what we do, but I'd love to just quickly reiterate it. We leverage technology, innovation, and elite human talent to create high-quality content at scale for our customers. We work with over 6,000 native English writers. We have a veteran production team of 10 dedicated content managers, and we've produced over 200 million words in the last 5 years. All right, so I wanted to start by talking about the types of content that lends itself best to scaling when it comes to written content programs. The first is city pages. So City Pages is a form of landing pages and does a fantastic job at getting you into that local pact. So I see two scenarios for scaling programs with City Pages. One is if you have a physical location, Google can decipher that location, but if you offer it in different cities or municipalities, being able to produce content over multiple areas really helps with the SEO juice. The second part of City Pages is if you own a shopping comparison site like HomeAdvisor.com or Expedia, where you're comparing different aspects of the service or products you're promoting, but on a national level, and then narrowing it down into the large metropolitan cities, the states, and areas. The second is blog posts. This is the tried and true originator of scaling content is the blog post. Really allows you to talk on any topic in depth, find those keywords, and produce content at a rapid pace in order to really see those qualified, that qualified organic traffic grow exponentially. The third is landing pages. City Pages, as I mentioned, is a form of landing pages. But what landing pages allows companies to do is produce, hundreds, if not thousands, of unique pages that have specific calls to action, such as book now, buy now, and so forth, and really allows you to go after any kind of keyword that you want to. So this is a fantastic format for scaling your content programs. Product descriptions, a lot of times resellers and e-commerce companies have to rewrite the manufacturer's product descriptions, and they are perhaps putting out thousands of new products every week onto their site, onto their shelf, and they need to have that unique content. Google does not penalize you for duplicate content, but being able to compete with those originators, those manufacturers, being able to scale that program is very important. Resource Hub and directories. This is sort of playing off your blog posts. It's really creating that, educational center for your readers and your audience, your prospective clients. Really answering all the major questions they could have, top of funnel content, thought leadership content that's really going to set you apart from your competitors. A to Z glossary pages and so forth is actually a fantastic way to scale your SEO efforts. The next one is category and brand pages. We have seen a lot of e-commerce and retail companies come to us with very large mandates to produce high volumes of content in category and brand pages to help with that SEO juice. Anywhere from little black dress categories to dressers and so forth. And oftentimes you've got manufacturers that won't let you edit the copy of the product descriptions. However, you, who controls the reins to your page, can really boost SEO through the use of those category and brand pages. The last piece is buying guides. So buying guides are a fantastic way to come off and be that expert to help guide your prospective clients on how to buy your products or services. We see three different kinds of buying guides. We see just the product buying guide, little black dress, the seasonal buying guide, which is, decorating for Thanksgiving, and then also the occasion, how to set up a romantic date night and so forth. So these are the different types of content that really lends well to scaling. Next on to, how you could structure that team. No matter what, as you're planning to scale out a large content program, you need to figure out who is involved, what time is committed, and how that's going to flow. There's going to be moving parts all the time, but what we typically see is, from the company standpoint, they have that content lead that can often also be the SEO lead as well. And then we see three different options that come up quite frequently. First is you're utilizing your in-house writers and editors. The pros there is that these in-house writers, they're going to know your product the best. They know your brand voice and tone the best, and they're going to be the least resistant to learning what's going on. The cons around using your in-house writers and editors is their perhaps inability to scale quickly. So the output is maxed if you've got 3 or 4 writers in-house versus utilizing the freelance networks out there. And then also cost. If you do want to expand those in-house writers, you're looking at more overhead and more salaries to add to that. The second area in which you can really execute well is you're working with freelance writers and editors. So pro here is the cost associated with it is going to be a lot less than hiring more in-house staff writers. Cons are they're going to take a little bit longer to get up to speed. And then the third option is using a content partner. Pro there is most or the ones that are very well established that focus on scaling content programs are going to have a couple of layers involved there. They're going to have editing layers. They're going to have a QA person on their end to make sure that that content, be it the second piece or the 2000th piece matches everything that goes into the requirements. The cons, similar to using freelance writers and editors, is going to be that it's going to take a little bit longer to get to know your brand and your voice and your requirements. So once you've established the team, how we've seen it work is really starting out with having that pre-project consultation. So you've got all your stakeholders involved, internal and external, and you go through all those logistics. That's really important. From there, creating that overarching project brief that allows you to go through all the nuances from the words to use, the words not to use, the keyword instructions, the placement, the H1s, the H2s, stuff like that. It's all very important information because you don't want to get, into the throes of things and realize, oh, we don't really have that cohesive plan. From there, you assemble your workforce. You've got your editors, you've got your writers, and then where we see a lot, the important part is once again, if you are outsourcing, you want to do calibration. So what that looks like is you got a 500-page project that you're working on, sending out maybe 5, getting it done, jumping back on the phone, getting that feedback, going back, editing that brief based on that feedback, and so on and so forth. Typical large-scale programs we've worked with, you're going to see 1 to 2 calibration rounds, sometimes 3, but most of the time it's about 2 rounds. All right, so jumping into some of the feedback I got when I was surveying our in-house content managers, and what I've got here is some quotes from them around traits of challenging content programs that they've been worked on. They have worked on in the past. First is, they had really confusing or unclear expectations and instructions. This goes back to the point I had on the previous slide around really making sure that, those briefs are set up for success for the writers and editors. And, it's a struggle sometimes if they're confusing. The next one is, we talk about this all the time in the office here, is, client told us they hate meetings. So it's quite frustrating. That particular instance was really tough for us because we needed that feedback. We were delivering large batches of category pages and we couldn't get them on the phone. And we had to press pause a couple of months in saying, you guys, we need to get that in real-time feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly, in order to make sure that, this program is going to be successful. Next one is, after onboarding, we realized there were way too many cooks in the kitchen. In this incident, basically what was happening is we would get feedback from one person within the company. We'd make those revisions. We'd send it back. They would then send it to someone in sales. They'd put their 2 cents in, send it back to us. We'd have to edit it. We'd send it back. They'd send it to somebody in tech. And what ends up happening was scope creep. So all these revisions were delaying our inevitable deadline, and it wasn't working. So really being able to have that key person to collect the feedback from their side and send it back in one swoop is, makes a huge difference. And then, we'd send batches over to them and they'd just sit there. They didn't have the internal bandwidth to publish the content at the pace we were doing it. Making sure that when you're setting up your initial team, you've got somebody on the other end that's going to be able to publish it within, 3 business days or something along those lines. So it's a well-oiled machine from ordering the content to publishing the content. Next one is they didn't stick to a content schedule. Everything felt rushed. This is, had to do with an agency client of ours where they weren't planning out that content calendar, 3 to 6 months. Oftentimes we were getting instructions for articles, 24 hours before the newsletter was going out. And it just really became really difficult to manage expectations when we were doing that. And the last one is they had major changes to requirements in the middle of the project. So, making changes means you have to go back and revise everything that you've delivered. That's going to cost money and cost a lot of time and push things back. So just jumping into my last slide, I know we're coming up a bit on time, is just traits around successful content programs, which is just the opposite of what I've just kind of gone over. But, the clients and the programs that our content managers truly, really loved working on, and we saw great success, is, they provided style guides that clearly laid out what they were looking for in their content. During calibration process, they provided examples of great work for us to reference. This is great because 90% of our clients tell us that their brand voice and tone is casual, fun, professional. But when push comes to shove, that's not really, it's different in the end. It changes. So if you have those pieces available, including those is key. Constructive feedback after each delivery was fantastic. Give us more of that. Once again, going back to the process, that constructive loop, that feedback loop is very important for writers, even if it's, this was great, I like this, always giving those in. And then always provide instructions on where to find data or supply the research themselves. This is really helpful in industries that are highly regulated, such as legal, health, and medical. And the final one is, they understood how to leverage technology to streamline their delivery process. This is great when you've got high volumes of content that's being pushed out on a weekly or monthly basis. Perhaps there's an API connection, or there's just a very seamless process that they can utilize technology on both ends to make things happen a lot better. All right. So in recap, you should be able to determine what part of your content program could scale by outsourcing. Is it a city page? Is it a category page? learn who you need to add to your team to make it successful if you plan to outsource, and then also integrate some of those learnings from challenging and successful quotes that we provided from our seasoned content professionals in your content program. Thank you so much. We do have some available resources for you to download that go into a lot more detail than what I said. One is on scaling product descriptions. We've done over 150,000 of them, and we've got some great learnings there. And the second one is how to scale your SEO city page program. Thank you so much for this time, and I'm open to any questions.